A gentleman I'm just getting to meet now is Bill Mitchell, who's a CSPOA rep from Florida. You can tell by the... we have rust, you have tans. Anyway, go get him, Bill. Good to meet you.
Thanks very much. How y'all doing? All right. Well, it's an honor to be here to speak to you. You guys are wonderful to come out on a cold evening to come listen to this. And so I hope not to disappoint and give you some information that maybe you didn't have before. So I'm going to start with, Sheriff Mack asked me to come out here and talk to you a little bit about what we're doing out in Florida about constitutional counties, and specifically the constitutional county ordinance that we're working with down there. Because, by the way, how many of you during COVID were aware that maybe your constitutional rights were violated? Anybody? Whoa, everybody, gosh, whoa, okay, you're an intelligent group. Well, let me tell you, I got to tell you a little story about how I got involved with this, okay? Because what happened was I was living in Arizona in Lake Havasu City when COVID broke out and all the shutdowns happened. And I happened to have a couple of friends of mine say, hey, Bill, would you come to the city council meeting tonight? Because, we know you're not doing any of this stuff and all that, and we really want, you to be there and kind of support us. You don't need to say anything, but just come support us. Be there at the meeting because we're going to be talking to the city council about this. And I said, well, great, I'll go. Good to sit down and listen. So I was sitting there listening to them, and they were going on about how the masks didn't work, or how can COVID know which table is not, going to have any sort of people at that so that they can all congregate on that surface, not someplace else, right? And so they were going through all these things, and I was listening to their arguments, and I was thinking, there's something seriously wrong here. They're not addressing the constitutional issue. So at the end of the meeting, when they said, well, does anybody else have anything to say? I said, well, I do. And they said, well, what do you got to say? I said, well, you're missing the fact that this is a constitutional issue and that they're violating our constitutional rights here. And I said, if we can create cities that are sanctuaries for illegal aliens, by God, we can create a city that's a sanctuary for the Constitution, don't you think? That's exactly what they said. The whole room applauded and everybody was thinking, and I said, well, you know what? I'm going to come back in 2 weeks, the next meeting, it'll all be taken care of. Yeah, that's right, you should laugh. Because it was a joke, because nothing changed the following week. So what I did at that point, we started an organization, we started working really hard for the next year to put in place what we called Resolution 1776, which was a resolution that basically held the county accountable and the people for the Constitution. We finally got that passed. Now, what I didn't know is at the same time we were doing that in Arizona, in Florida, the same thing was happening. In fact, Flagler County in Florida was the first county in Florida, and almost exactly the same time as we passed it, they did as well. However, there was another county, Collier County, and Chris Hall, who basically created the gold standard for the constitutional county by hiring a constitutional attorney to, instead of writing it as a resolution, to write it as an ordinance. Because an ordinance has teeth. For instance, if somebody violates the Constitution, I'll give you an example. When I was in Lake Havasu, we would try to hold the city manager and the mayor accountable for the fact that they were violating our rights. So we went to the county sheriff and said, actually, no, we started with the DA, actually. And we got the meeting with the assistant DA, and he said, we see your depositions, we see all the facts you've got here. You might have a really good case. We'll call you next week and tell you what we're going to do about that. We're going to call next week. Guess what they said? This is not a matter for the county. This is something you're going to have to take to the Attorney General of the state. Okay, would you give us a letter in writing that said something like that? No. Oh, okay. Well, we took it to the Attorney General. Guess what the Attorney General said? It's a matter for the FBI. You getting the idea? It was a runaround. Well, we finally got that passed. And in Florida, what happened was Chris Hall, who was, he'd gone down there to retire very much like I did when I went to Florida. And he basically pushed through this constitutional county ordinance that was written by a constitutional attorney and is the gold standard for how do you protect your county against COVID-like things. Because, by the way, has your county or anybody in your state done anything to protect you from that type of lockdown happening again? Yeah, that's right. No, they haven't. That's exactly right. So what you need to do is know that at a county level, you can put the things in place that can protect you, not just against COVID, but things like election integrity. One of the things we found out in Florida when we were working with the supervisors of elections, I think you call them auditors here, we were working with the supervisors of elections to find out how could we deal with election tampering and fraud that takes place in a lot of counties. Well, what we found out is that the supervisors of elections and auditors have to submit an election security plan to the Secretary of State to have it approved. They can put whatever they want in that plan. Okay? So they can put in all the things that we were trying to get legislations to take care of to be put in at a county level. So there's a lot of ways as a county that you can protect yourselves. And that's what my whole goal is to make people aware of what they can do at a county level and empower them, the county commissions, the sheriffs, supervisors of elections, the judiciary, have them all working together to create the pillars of a constitutional county. And so if you have any desire to have your county be a constitutional county, please give me a call, get my information later, because we'd be happy to come up and help you do that. Thank you all for coming out, and God bless you.
Bill Mitchell.